Hello everyone, I'm Elliana, and in our first advanced year, grade 11, we tackled the Building Sustainable Futures Challenge, where we asked ourselves, how can we create an exciting future for humanity that is in line with the Sustainable Development Goals and the flourishing of both people and the planet? In the first term, we focused on engaging with and investigating the challenge. We explored sustainability through the lens of interconnected human and natural systems, examined planetary boundaries, learned how to build capacity through the inner development goals, expanded our ways of thinking with the 7th generation principle to consider the well-being of future generations, and so much more. After exploring key themes, we chose a real-world problem for our year-long challenge project, which can also be submitted for the EPQ qualification. Learners can choose from 4 different types of EPQ projects: a dissertation, which is an in-depth research essay, an investigative field study, conducting experiments, a performance, creating or performing a piece, or an artifact, developing a product or model. For my extended challenge project, I chose to write a dissertation, specifically on gender biases and stereotypes in primary education. Now I'd like to walk you through my journey this term. After thinking through the challenges I'm most passionate about, I decided to focus my attention on how unconscious gender biases and stereotypes in primary education affect student learning outcomes. Now that I had my topic identified, I started planning the timeline of my project. Using a Gantt chart, I was able to organize when certain parts of my dissertation needed to be completed by, so I didn't fall behind and knew exactly what I needed to do. Another aspect of my project planning was the project proposal. Slightly more detailed than the Gantt chart, this document allowed me to identify why I chose this project, the amount of time I needed for each activity, my key milestones, and the resources I needed. With all these components organized, I was ready to begin my project. I split the project creation process into 4 main steps. The first, defining my topic. The second, research. This would include searching for case studies, journal articles, experiments, and professional writings from credible organizations and institutions that related to my project. The third step would be analysis. Once I had around 30 sources that I could use for my dissertation, I would need to analyze them for their key information, as well as their strengths and weaknesses and any potential biases. And finally, writing. This is where I would take the information I had collected and analysed and turn it into a literature review. When collecting my sources, it was important to make sure that the information was credible. I made sure to research the organisation or publisher I had retrieved the information from to make sure my dissertation was as trustworthy as possible. Oxford Academic, the National Library of Medicine, and the American Economic Institute were all organisations I used regularly as they were widely accepted, peer-reviewed academic journals or institutions. One of my favourite pieces of information was collected from the 2023 Global Gap Report, which aims at eliminating gender inequality. They shared that 68.4% of the gender gap had been closed, compared to 68.1% in 2022. While this is positive progress, they share that the current rate of change could see the gender gap closed in 131 years. This absolutely shocked me. It reminded me of how important it is to educate people about gender inequality and spurred me to continue this project. Before writing, I organised my sources by themes using a research log to make it easy to find relevant points and assess each source's strengths and weaknesses. Now was the time to start writing. I created a structure for my literature review to organise my findings. With all the sources I collected and the layout ahead of me, I was prepared to start writing my literature review, to list the methods and experiments the studies followed and explain the key findings from their research. After analysing, I found some patterns in the key findings. The first, and maybe most obvious, is that the education system contains significant gender bias and stereotypes. Additionally, gender discriminations from bias and stereotypes have been observed in children just 6 years old. This can be seen in specific subjects too, with STEM, mathematics, engineering, and computer science among the subjects that contain the most gender inequality with much lower female participation. But it's not just female students impacted by this problem. Male students face lower participation in reading and verbal testing. It's also been observed that they face lower overall academic achievement due to gender biases and stereotypes. In a concise summary of my evaluation, it's clear that actors such as teachers, textbooks, and subject approaches significantly influence the subject choices of male and female students. However, after reading several sources, there is hope. Solutions such as teacher training programs and positive role models in specific subjects can mitigate the impacts or spread of the gender gap in primary education. Though this process isn't over, I have developed so many new skills. These include critically evaluating sources, collecting data, academic writing, synthesizing information, planning and prioritizing tasks, meeting deadlines, and evaluating progress. Moving forward, my next steps will be the discussion section of my dissertation, where I will explore diverse views, factors, and perspectives gender biases and stereotypes play in primary education. I'll then write the conclusion and introduction and make final cuts and edits to make it as close to perfect as I can get it. And finally, the presentation, where I will present my final journey to the evaluators and my peers. Even though this is a project, I do believe that this has the potential to create a positive impact in society. My hope is that it will promote a greater awareness of gender biases, possibly improving teacher practices, create curriculum changes, and improve teacher training programs. On a larger scale, foster change towards gender equality, resulting in both girls and boys having access to equal opportunities. Thank you so much for listening. Please reach out to me if you have any questions.